On today's episode of What's Going On with Shipping. The Houthis are continuing their attacks on commercial vessels. I'm your host, Sal Mercogliano. Welcome to today's episode. Drones, and more drones. We are seeing an uptick in the number of attacks being perpetrated by the Houthis against commercial shippings. This happens concurrently with the withdrawal of American naval forces from the area. The aircraft carrier Dwight David Eisenhower and one of its escorting destroyers is up in the eastern Mediterranean, leaving just a U.S. cruiser, the Philippine Sea, and several of their destroyers in and around the area, supported by forces of the Great Britain and the European Union, along with Indian Navy and other navies, to basically guard ships in and around the area. And what we're seeing is, without the U.S. providing that gatekeeper operation around Yemen, attacks are being launched against vessels, and they're not only hitting, but they're going further and further out. We're going to break this down and talk about it for you today. If you're new to the channel, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. This is a story over on G-Captain. Houthis released video of alleged UAV. This is an unmanned aerial vehicle attack on a bulk carrier. Mike Schuller released this. The new video released by the Iranian-backed Houthis appear to show an attack on a Maltese-flagged bulk carrier on the Red Sea on Monday. The footage, which has not been verified, would be the first of its kind released by the Yemen-based terrorist group since launching drone and missile attacks against commercial shipping in the Red Sea. The video, and it is a grainy footage, appears to show the motor vessel Cyclades attacked on April 29th of 2024. And let's go ahead and break down this video. This translates as Media the Warlike Yemeni. Again, I am not fluent in the language. I am just using my Google Translate. So this says here, scenes of the ship Cyclades being targeted in the Red Sea with a Shahib-type drone, showing the moment the drone pounced on the ship and directly hit it. 20 Shawwal 1445 AH, that corresponds to 29 April 2024 AD. Subtitle here we get, launching a Shahib drone on the ship Cyclades in the Red Sea. So the Shahib has that kind of lawnmower engine, which is exactly what it sounds like. But to get it airborne, you need a little bit of a rocket boost, and that's that rocket that launches it into the air and then drops away. Here we see that grainy footage that shows you the assault on the vessel. This is saying scenes documenting the moment the drone pounced on the ship and achieved a direct hit. You see initially being aimed toward the center of the vessel. This is a bulker. The vessel is down low in the water, either ballasted or heavily loaded. The date does correspond with April 29th, but the ship will shift to target toward the bridge, and that's what you see back here. The booms forward, the holes, this after superstructure, you can see the lifeboat right here. This is the aft stack. These are the bridge wings, and you can see one of the bridge windows right here. The bridge is all forward here. But they're aiming for after the bridge, and this seems to be a machinery room off the area. You'll see a hatch here. So not exactly sure if they were going for the bridge or aiming here. The warheads on the Shabibs are not large, but if you do hit the bridge, you can cause severe damage and loss of life. This is the Washington Institute site that tracks vessel attacks, a very good site. Always recommend it. I think they do a great job. I just want to highlight some attacks that have been initiated since April. So you'll see the most recent attack here is the Cyclades. This is April 29th. Then on April 26th, we have the MSC Orion. This vessel is way out in the Indian Ocean. We're going to come back and talk about this. Next, you have the oil tanker Andromeda Star. This was an attack on the vessel with 3 anti-ship ballistic missiles. Panamanian registry. This ship was alleged by the Houthis to be Israeli-owned, but what we find out is that this ship is part of the Russian Dark Fleet. It had been involved in a collision up in the Danish Straits. A lot of debates about who actually owns the vessel, and more importantly, the insurance. April 25th, an attack on the MSC Darwin 6 Liberian flag. April 24th, the attack on Maersk Yorktown. Talked about this the other day. This indicates that change in strategy by the United States. They're no longer putting their ships along the coast of Yemen. Instead, they are actually doing direct escorts. Maersk Yorktown, we believe, was being escorted for the second attack by HMS Diamond of the Royal Navy. And then HMS Ares, this is the vessel that was seized and grabbed by Iran up out of the Straits of Hormuz. Back on April 6th and 7th, the attack on Hope Island. This was missile attacks against a vessel, a container ship. And even on April 1st, a cruise ship, not always known, but believe it or not, in the middle of all this, a cruise ship came rolling through here. The Crystal Symphony came through. They were hailed and gunshots supposedly fired at the vessel. They were sailing from Asia up into the Mediterranean. Gotta imagine that was an exciting cruise for everybody on board. This is the detail provided on Cyclades. Bulk carrier, again, 3 anti-ship ballistic missiles were sent at it. We know the vessel was heading northbound through this area. The ship is under the Greek-based Eastern Mediterranean Maritime Limited and has been that way since August of 2017. And then over here, MSC Orion, this ship is owned by the Zodiac Group out of Monaco and has been a registered owner under Zodiac Maritime Limited. This is linked to the Israeli billionaire Eiffel Ofer. And we've seen several vessels of Mr. Ofer's that have come under attack. Reuters story from April 26th, the UKMTO, the Maritime Trade Operations, reported a ship damaged in the Red Sea. This is the Andromeda Star, the vessel that had a lot of issues. We know the ship was carrying Russian oil to India. Its owner was through a Seychelles registered corporation that's linked to Russia trade, so we don't know exactly who the true owner is. Ambry noted that it's a Panamanian flag tanker, formerly UK owned, before it changed ownership in November of 2023. This is why it is so dangerous in and around this region, because the Houthis sometimes are operating under old information and they're making attacks based on that. Story from Mike Scholler on April 30th. Houthis attack commercial ship in the Indian Ocean. This is that attack that was further out. It took place on April 26, targeted the Portuguese flag container ship MSC Orion that's reportedly targeted due to its affiliation with Israel. A lot of Mediterranean shipping company vessels have been attacked. This has to do with both the fact that the ship does trade with Israel, but also because the wife of the owner is dual citizenship, Italian and Israeli. This is the notice that came out from the Joint Maritime Information Center about the attack. These are the tracks for MSC Orion, MSC Veracruz, both heading up to Dubai. Notice, pretty good distance off the coast of Somalia, but pretty far away from Yemen. Remember, the attacks from Yemen initially were all happening here in the southern Red Sea, the Bab el-Mandab. They then moved out into the Gulf of Aden here, but now they're ranging further out and attacking ships that are sailing along the east coast of Africa, heading up into the Middle East, which means that when you look at where shipping is, ships coming out of the Middle East now are going to have to head further east, out of the way, away from the coast of Africa, to avoid these further penetrations by the Houthi out of Yemen into the Indian Ocean. Now, they can't get at the main shipping route that's being diverted down here, but they are able to hit ships further and further out. So what does this mean regarding shipping in and around the Indian Ocean? So I've done 2 videos just the other day, one on how we lost the Red Sea. And let me clarify something. When I say we, I don't mean the United States. I don't mean the West. I mean global shipping. Global shipping has lost the Red Sea. If the U.S. Navy's and its allies in Operation Prosperity Guardian's stated purpose was to return commercial shipping back to the Red Sea, they have failed at that. We were seeing over a 50% reduction in vessels going through. And that has led to a change in operation by the forces of Operation Prosperity Guardian. They're no longer providing the gatekeeper. Now what they're doing is they've shifted forces up into the Med, and what forces remain? The Philippine Sea, several destroyers of the United States Navy and other allied navies, both from Operation Prosperity Guardian and the European Union's Operation Aspides, is basically doing high-value escort missions for vessels in and around the area, which means ships that don't qualify for these escorts are now vulnerable. like the Cyclades, like the MSC Orion or MSC Veracruz or the Andromeda star, they can be attacked by the Houthi, and what we're seeing is an uptick in those number and scale of attacks. At the same time, the ships that are coming through here, like Andromeda star, are carrying cargo that's not really European, Asian based on the main supply line. This is Russian oil. This is cargo coming from the Middle East over to Europe or from Europe to the Middle East. As the Houthi range their attacks further and further out from Western Yemen, as Iran launches its attacks, as we're seeing contention in the South China Sea between China and the Philippines, as we are seeing global shipping responding to all these situations, this means that our ability to move goods around the great ocean commons is now being jeopardized. And what does that mean going forward? Well, typically what it means is longer routes, delays, which all translates to higher cost for you, the consumer, the shipper, the carrier, everybody involved. And the question becomes, what does navies from around the world do? Most of these ships are open registries, meaning they're not paying for navies. So what do the navies of the countries where they're being paid for do in this situation? Do they respond in? Is the U.S. and its allies going to go in and stop the Houthi attacks? Well, they've had months to do that, and it hasn't stopped them yet. We don't know what's going to happen next, but definitely stay tuned, because I think there's a lot more to happen. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, hey, take a moment, subscribe to the channel and hit the bell so you'll be alerted about new videos as they come out. Leave a comment, share it across social media, and if you can, support the page. How do you do that? You hit that super thanks button down below, or head on over to Patreon and become a monthly, yearly subscriber. So next video, Sal, signing off.